Oh, Morbius. There was so much potential there.
There really was. It could have been a really good movie, I think.
Right? The actors that they had. The only scene I actually, you know what, we'll talk about it. Ever since we watched it last night, I've been dying to talk about it. Okay.
Do you want to do the intro or do you want me to?
Think you did the last one.
Go for it.
Hello and welcome to Your Little Sisters Productions presents Missed Opportunities, the podcast and TV shows and other things from pop culture. And we talk about storytelling, mostly from the point of view, well, mostly, it's only from the point. Oh, we'll have guests on at some point in our lives, but Taya is our resident, and me, Laura, I have done acting for a good amount of my life. I don't know. I feel weird saying that. I wasn't like a theater kid, but I was always in classes. I didn't like when when I think theater kid, I think of theater kids, did like two, three, four shows a year, and I've only probably been in 15 or less in my entire life.
I like you can't even get through the intro without being like, well, I mean, I'm not you can't even brag. You can't even humble brag.
I was in a short film that made it to an international women's film festival
Yes. There you
that
go. There you go.
that you and I
Just stay
produced.
there.
Well, I feel weird saying that. Like, I'm an actor because I know so many people with way more experience than me. So I
Yeah,
feel
people can create their own podcasts and they can toot their own horn. We don't owe them anything.
so basically what this intro, I thought I would do so well too. What this intro hasn't covered is that I have really big imposter syndrome. Anyway, but aside from that, we love stories, we love storytelling in all formats, music, writing, movies, shows, and that's mainly what we talk about. We also are on social media, Facebook, Instagram. We also have a Patreon and we have a YouTube channel. We are going to be putting more up on YouTube soon. We know we haven't posted on there in a while, but more content is coming. And the Patreon is under Taya's name. So patreon/TayaJoyFlake.com. You'll find two tiers there, one for this, our podcast, and one for the YouTube channel. Month we will be posting exclusives on Patreon from the podcast, only available on patreon.com. Your extra takes from us on movies, TV shows, characters, whatever it be. Go ahead and sign up. It's $5 a month to support us or support our YouTube channel, which, as I said, content is being planned and coming very soon. If you want to see what we can do with that, go ahead and support us there. Because
Nope.
Twitter refuses to believe that I am a real person. I don't know why.
I think it's your imposter syndrome. I think it feeds off of it. It's like, this isn't a real girl. She's not really an actress.
It's killing other parts of my life, Taya. I have to get over it. Okay. That was really funny. I like that. Okay. See, sometimes we're funny on here too. So today we're talking about Morbius, which is weird because it's in association with Marvel, but it's not a Marvel film.
It is a
And that
Marvel film.
it
It's
is a
just
Marvel.
not. They just don't. It's like the weird stepchild that they had in the basement. I feel so bad for it,
I'm
honestly.
so confused because I thought I remember seeing it. It said it's Marvel Studios, and I said, is it kind of like when Marvel borrowed Spider-Man from Sony situation?
Well,
Ugh.
because you watched the after credit scene, correct?
Yes, with Michael character, the Vulture, I think is his
Right,
name.
and he is in
He's the Spider-Man.
the serious MCU for real. Like they claim him. So
But they also talked about Venom. Is that a Marvel film? I thought Venom was
Venom
done
is
by another
Sony.
studio.
Venom is Sony, but at the end of that one movie where they all mashed up, Spider-Man?
We we
Um
saw Venom.
so spoilers. I'm This is the after credit scene in what is that movie?
Is it No Way
Spider-Man
Home?
No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home, a piece of the symbiote, which is Venom. If you don't know, Venom is an alien that takes over a human body and it's like a liquid that has to have a host. So a little liquidy part of Venom stayed when the character of Venom, whose name I don't remember, gets taken back to his universe. Are they in the Peter Parker universe? Because he does mention Venom, but Venom isn't in like Tom Holland's Peter Parker universe. So maybe like he is in the Sony's, like Morbius's Spider-Man is Tobey Maguire.
Well, because
I don't
when Vulture
know.
at the end credit scene of Morbius,
He wouldn't.
the Vulture comes from Tom Holland's Peter Parker's into Morbius's world. So they have to have a different Spider-Man. They have to either have Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield or a completely different Spider-Man.
Yeah, because the Venom that is in the end of Spider-Man No Way Home is not Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield or Tom Holland. He is by himself. He is not in the
Mm,
world of Tobey Maguire. Because
mm,
Tobey Maguire has a Venom and it's Topher Grace, and we don't talk
mm.
about it because it was not
I've
right.
never seen Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire. I've just
Uh,
seen a lot of like
so
clips and
so
memes of him like going down the street snapping and with the
okay,
emo
okay.
hair.
Okay, I have to explain. So this came out when my brother was on his mission, and I watched it, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was the greatest movie ever. And then when he came home, I was like, "Oh my gosh, you gotta watch it! It's so great!" And he was like, "This is the worst movie ever." And I was like, "What? How can you think that?" And I rewatched it, and everything that has to do with Venom should have been cut out of that movie because it was bad. That's the whole emo thing, is he gets taken over by the symbiote, and and that's him acting like that's his bad boy, basically, is that emo disco dance, like and
That's what
and I
they
was
came
like,
up with. He
I'm
couldn't
like,
wear a
I do
leather
not
jacket and
remember
ride a
this.
motorcycle or something. Like,
Yeah, but I do not remember that. I like we've talked about how you don't remember cuss words. I do
yeah,
not remember. Like I forgot everything about the Venom story because there's three bad guys in that movie, and the other two are freaking awesome bad guys, and they have really good, compelling stories, and they're so like it's such a good movie and it's such a good story. And then you add everything to do with Venom, which I'm sorry, I do like Topher Grace, and he's a great actor, but he was not right for Venom. And the storyline of Venom wasn't done justice because Venom needs his own movie. And they had three bad guys. The other two were perfect and amazing. And I really thought that if you take out all of the Venom stuff, and we decided that like last time he came up here, because I was like, if you just take out the Venom, everything else in that movie is good. Like it is done well, it is acted well, it has good story. The only problem with it is the Venom and the fact that they had three bad guys when they only needed two. Or they should have just given Venom his own storyline. But anyway, so all of that to say, we don't know where Morbius is. He might be in the MCU's parallel universe. He might be a different timeline, a different variant with Loki. We don't know. We don't know. It's somehow connected, but we don't know.
and Vulture somehow ends up there and wants to team up. By the way, weren't there like two or three after credit scenes for
Yeah,
Morbius, which I know is common for Marvel, but
I think
I
there was.
wanted Morbius to end so badly. I was so annoyed every time another scene popped up, which is the complete opposite of when I watch something, for example, like Lord of the Rings makes fun of how Return of the King has five endings, but we love it so much no one cares that it has five endings because you're
Yeah,
sad as it's ending. So more? Okay. You know?
yeah. Well, this one didn't have any ending. Like it ends
No.
horribly. If you haven't seen Morbius, sorry, we've obviously been talking in spoilers this whole time, but do you want to do like a little synopsis?
He is born disease. He has to get transfusions. I think it's three times a day.
Uh-huh.
He's a
And then
genius.
and he makes the best friend who also has the same disease.
Oh, yes, and there's two of them. So it makes a best friend. So they grow up having to get these blood, I keep saying infusions, but I know there's another word, transfusion.
Confusion.
Basically every day. Morbius character is a doctor. He's a genius, by the way. He got his doctorate at around 19, I think. college around 19, something to that effect. Mega genius creates artificial blood. I think he was trying to create it to cure his disease and the disease of his friend, but it does help. This artificial blood helps many, many people with many, many diseases, just not his. He goes to, I want to say it's Puerto Rico, could be another country, somewhere in South America, and mixes his blood with vampire bats blood and
No, so that's just how he gets the bats. Is the whole beginning scene is pointless, but that's just him getting the bats. He doesn't mix it yet.
oh well, he gets the bats and then he makes a serum which gets in. By the way, that scene was so triggering for me because that reminded I've had two C-sections and that reminded me of when I was in the ER and they were about to give me the spinal. That's exactly, you have to lean forward and like curve your back and then they take their and they with their fingers, except the part that they missed. I don't know. I'm not looking behind me. Anyone in the maybe either put the needle in or I had some very strong anesthesiologist and they took their like thumbnail and they're like, is this in the center? Do you feel anything right or left? And then they put the needle in. And anyway, if anyone was wondering, that's what happens before a C-section. So I was not very triggered. I hate using that lightly, so I don't mean to, but it was very reminiscent of my two operations. So I could, my back hurt during that whole scene. So he gets the serum in and he becomes a vampire. He kills some people. They're mercenaries. So we're supposed to kind of take it as they were kind of bad people in the first place, but he kills some people. The female doctor that is there that has been helping him gets knocked out. When he comes back to his senses, he calls Mayday, Mayday over the ship's radio and then leaves the ship. We don't know if he leaves the ship, by the way. I'm assuming he just swims.
Well, he doesn't have to leave the ship because he's a bat and he can like climb on the roof and stuff. So
is that what happened? Did he stay on the
yeah,
ship the whole time?
he stays on the ship until they dock, and then he
Did
gets
you?
off.
How did you see that? I totally did not. Jonathan didn't even know where he went while he on the boat. Did we miss that somehow?
I don't think it explains it, but that's how I figured it was because it makes a point of showing that he can hang upside down right before that. So that was my like we can't find him, and I was like,
See,
oh
that's
well,
one of my
he's hiding.
problems with this movie is you have to make a lot of assumptions, but we'll get to that. Anyway, she gets knocked out, has her head hit. So they're saying, the cops who come to investigate are saying, we'll get what we can out of her, but she hit her head, so we'll have to see if she remembers anything. She's in the hospital. Anyway, Morbius gets back to his lab and he's kind of testing out what his new abilities are. They last time, then he needs to drink artificial blood. And as time goes on, the artificial blood doesn't work for as long. It starts off working for about every 6 hours. After a few days, it gets down to 4.5 hours. His friend, who also has the disease, figures out that he made this cure and he wants it, but Morbius says, no, I won't turn you into what I am. It's a curse. It's not a cure. His friend doesn't listen, takes the serum, murders someone. Morbius gets pinned for it. His friend helps him escape, and Morbius finds out that his friend is the one who murdered the person. His friend doesn't want to stop murdering because now his friend is a psychotic murderer, I guess. Doesn't care about the sanctity of human life, even though he himself was dying most of his life.
It shows you at the beginning that he is kind of a jerk, and he gets beat up by kids, and so when he has the opportunity, he tries to beat up the kid that was hurting him. So that's always been his mentality. He's just been too weak.
I mean, yeah, but so then they're kind of enemies. The friend tries to say, stop denying what you are. This is a gift. We can do what we want. And Morbius is like, no, we have to, this isn't right. We can't do this. We're hurting people. So now they're enemies. And so they go on this, Morbius creates something that will kill both him and his friend. And his plan was to inject his friend and then to inject himself. So he creates this serum, and his plan was to kill his friend with it and himself afterward because he perceives himself to be a danger once artificial blood stops working, because then he'd have to go to the red stuff, which is human blood. artificial blood is blue, by the way. That's how you distinguish artificial from real. But his friend ends up killing this doctor that basically to them and raised them and helped them through their illness, and the female doctor that Morbius has started a romance with, the one that was helping him, who got the head injury. Morbius goes, they kiss, she bites his lip and gets a drop of her blood in her, but then nothing seems to happen at that moment. So Morbius continues and he goes on to fight his friend. They have a fight. He can now control bats. Morbius, the friend. Morbius calls all these bats to him and controls bats, and with their help, kills his friend. Does not give himself the poison, I guess, that he made. And we see the female doctor open her eyes, and they're bright red, and we're to assume that she is now like Morbius, a vampire. And then we already talked about the after credits scenes. We see Michael Keaton's character, because of events in No Way Home, go from one universe to another. The last scene, he asks Morbius if they want to team up, and that's the movie.
His friend is super rich, and he's the one that paid for. So Morbius wants to do this experiment, right? Because they did it on a rat, and the rat survived. So he's like, I want to do it on myself, like a human experiment, but I need this and this and this and this, and it has to be done in international waters. And so that's why he's on the ship in international waters, so he can't get prosecuted for doing this illegal experiment. And that's why they're on the ship. So how would you fix this movie, Laura?
Oh my goodness. Okay. At the very beginning, we meet Michael. So we meet Morbius or Michael, I should say, in the hospital, and a new kid comes, and his name is Lucian, and he has the same blood disease as Michael. And then when Michael meets, and he calls him Milo, he's like, I'm not Milo. My name is Lucian. You must be confusing me with the boy before. He's like, no, the boy before Milo, but I called him Milo, and the boy before him was another Milo. He said, I forgot who the first Milo was. So you get the sense that he's watched a lot of kids come and go. Either they die or they get better. I don't know. But he calls every new kid Milo that gets the bed next to him. They don't establish the childhood friendship very well. They're talking, it's their first time meeting. And as they're having a conversation for the first time, it suddenly goes to, you see them playing in another room with toys, but they're still having the conversation. You hear it from the first time they meet, and then it goes back, so it's like a weird flash forward. So you can see, oh, look, they're going to become friends in the future, but they're still having their initial conversation. And then that conversation ends, and they're back in that room with the toys and playing, but their conversation continues seamlessly. It doesn't, if it sounds like it doesn't make sense, it's because it doesn't make sense.
When in the last conversation, they see boys out on the street because they're across the street from a school, and the boys at the school are making fun of the kids that are in the hospital, and Morbius has says the line, like, we're like I think it's Sparta, and he's like, the few against the many. We are the few against the many, and that is reoccurring throughout the movie. And
but they don't do a good job of establishing establishing its importance. Once, when they're looking out a window at boys being mean.
Sorry, the way that they do the introduction of them as kids, like the prologue of them as kids, right? So they're having this conversation, and it goes through a couple of days or whatever, like she said, and it does it weirdly. But then in the last part, when he says that the few against the many or whatever, Milo's they're getting their transfusions, and Milo's machine breaks and it stops working, and Morbius Michael, whatever, there's too many M's in this movie.
Yeah, I just started calling them Jared Leto and Matt Smith when I was talking about it with my husband. I was like, so Jared Leto and Matt Smith.
Yeah, so Jared Leto's little character, I don't know who that actor is, but he's a little kid, his character fixes the machine with a ballpoint, with the spring from a ballpoint pen. And so it's like that's the only connection that we see of them being friends. And then the doctor guy talks to Michael Morbius and is like, hey, you're a genius and we can get you into this really genius school, and we'll have somebody go with you to do all of your treatments so that you can go to this really awesome school. And he's like, well, what about Milo? And the doctor says, I'll take care of Milo. Somebody steals a letter that Michael left him, and he gets beat up, and he's like, give me my letter, give me my letter. And the kids beat him up. The doctor comes and saves him. And then Milo starts attacking one of the kids that was beating him up. And he's like, you're trying to take my letter? You like, how dare you try to take my letter? How dare you? And starts beating him up. And of course he's doing absolutely nothing, but the kid can't retaliate because there's a adult right there. So he's like beating someone up in the fetal position. And that's it. Like, that's what we get of them as kids. Like, that is supposed to set them up as these brothers and everything like that. And then the next time
I
you
would
see
have.
them together is they talk about how close they are and how they grew up together, but they don't show it very well.
Yes, exactly. Actually, going a bit further back, the first scene we get is Morbius getting the bats, which just doesn't make sense
No.
in the timeline. They I wouldn't have that scene as the opening scene. I would have the opening scene be them in a hospital, maybe. Start off with the
Yeah.
kids in the hospital, maybe something else, but not what they gave. But while in the hospital, I would have spent a little bit more time building the friendship, showing the friendship building and the bond. I was thinking maybe there would even be a scene where for some reason they're both outside, even though Michael said don't do it. Then maybe they're both outside for some reason. Maybe Milo or Lucian, who he calls Milo, goes outside and Michael follows. But the bullies come in. It's them against the bullies, the few against the many
Yeah.
at one point. That would have been nice to see that camaraderie. Maybe they even had a victory over them or something. And then the boys came back later to retaliate, and that's when they took the letter from Milo Lucian. Another thing that kind of bugs me because of the tiny amount of connection we see them have at the beginning, that everybody calls Lucian Milo. And he starts going by Milo because we don't get that brotherhood, we're best friends till we die sense from when they're young. It just kind of annoyed me that he was with this nickname. If that makes sense. I don't know why it annoyed me, but it did.
I get what they were trying to go for, where they were trying to make it like show you how important Michael was to Lucian, is by like the fact, and he even says at later when they're like beating you, I think when he's dying,
Yeah.
he's like, you can't kill me, like you gave me my name, you know. But it doesn't give meaning to the name, because he literally says, I don't even remember the first Milo, like you're just the last Milo. The very beginning scene with the bats doesn't connect. Like, that's just him gathering bats, and it's creepy, and it shows, it gives the full body. It shows him being crippled and in pain and stuff, and he can't really walk, and it shows him being crazy. He slices his hand and puts it up to vampire bats, and all the people run away. But it doesn't the placement of it doesn't make sense, because we
Mm-mm.
see him being crazy, right? We see him being this headstrong, crazy, out there person who's a little bit morbid. Um, and then we see him as an innocent young child. And then it flashes forward to him shirking off his Nobel Prize, but being super sweet to this little girl, because he's a doctor, and he's treating this little girl, and he's being like so sweet to her. And it's like, okay, so is this man an evil, crazy psychopath, or is he like a sweet doctor? Like, what? You don't get a sense of him from that scene. And I think that they're trying to like keep you on your toes, as is he a good guy, is he a bad guy? But they spend the entire movie trying to make him a good guy, while it's throwing in all these little bad guy moments. Like, he needs a laboratory because, now everybody's looking for him, and he finds some counterfeit lab, and he breaks the guy's fingers.
Yes.
And it's like, okay,
Let me
that's not
introduce you
hero.
to.
But
It,
at the same time, he's like, I like, but at the same time, he's saying all these hero lines of like, I will never drink the red, and I will never become like Milo, and I'm like a, and she's like, you're a good person, which I think we need to talk about. I think we as a society really need to talk about women who keep being okay with men murdering people in front of them.
it's not okay. Say it. I'm not going to blame
Like,
Twilight because before Twilight, we had Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Moonlight, which was another vampire show, and I'm sure many other supernatural things. So it's not Twilight's fault. We had Vampire Diaries, the books, well before Twilight, if I remember
mhm.
correctly. So it's not Twilight's fault. But a lot of people have pointed out the whole part in the beginning when Edward tells Bella that he's killed people, and like she takes it so lightly. Oh, okay. I could kill you. I want to kill you every second. Oh, okay. It's just that
It's like Star Wars where Padme, he's like, I just, murdered women and children. Okay, I'm
the
so sorry
Tuscan
for you. That must have
Raiders.
been hard. And yeah, and then it just bothers me, especially in this movie, because no shade to the actress, but I really did not like her character very much, especially the second time that I watched it. Because the first time I thought it was, kind of cute that she is such a good friend to him, and then they end up like kissing and stuff. But I was just like, you literally watch him murder a bunch of people, and that's one thing that I would do differently in this film is we see them in the boat and we see absolutely no danger from the crew of the boat. Like we don't see
Yeah,
them at all until he has already taken the serum, and then one guy comes in, he makes some inappropriate comments to um
the female
oh,
doctor.
what's her name, it starts with an M. Martine.
Bancroft.
It's
Martine
Martine.
Bancroft.
Yeah, and he makes some inappropriate. There are so many M's. He makes
Right?
inappropriate.
Martine, Michael.
Yeah, too many M's. So he makes inappropriate advances towards her and some inappropriate comments towards her, and then Morbius turns into a bat and kills him, and then he goes on a rampage and kills all these guys, and then afterwards we hear the police talk about, oh, these are just mercenaries, they're hired thugs, they're bad guys, and then they say it again when they capture him after the nurse dies. They're like, yeah, well, we don't care about the 8 people that you killed on the boat, we care about this one nurse who was a good person. And it's like, murder is murder. Like, you can't just be okay with people murdering anybody. And I feel like they really needed to put Martine's life in danger or something, like have the men attack her or something, like in order to make those murders okay, because just murdering people is not okay. And they kept trying to like act, yeah, but like it was after the fact, like it wasn't, they didn't give us evidence. And so when it happens, and so she hits her head, he kills everybody on the boat, he comes back to himself, he sees her, and he kind of protects her while he's in the vampire state, but not really. Like he's not doing it to save her. He's doing it because he's crazy, you know? Like the serum made him crazy, but then it's like, but we just saw in the first scene that he was already kind of crazy, So I
Right?
don't know. Again, they don't know whether or not he is a good guy or a bad guy. And there's such things as anti-heroes. There's plenty of characters that kind of walk the line, but they admit that they like, that's the difference between like Catwoman. Catwoman is not a hero, but she's also not really a villain. She takes care of her own, and that is an anti-hero. Like that's what that is. And depending on which, adaptation you go with, but and Deadpool, I have never seen Deadpool, but like he admits who he is. And that's what you need in an anti-hero. Wolverine is an anti-hero. He's mostly a hero, but like he tries. And he thinks he's an anti-hero even though he's really just a hero. Morbius doesn't know who he is, and like as far as, is he a good person, is he a bad person? And so we get all of these speeches about how he's a good person, but we see all of these reasons that he's a bad person. So it doesn't ever connect with the audience as to what his motives are. Why should we care about him, and why should we be rooting for him instead of the murderer psychopath friend? Or as far as like, he's not the vampire, like the new vampire that Jared Leto's character was. He is very much aware of what he's doing, and he's doing it because he's mad at people for not fixing him. You know, like he's like, we've had death looming us over us our entire lives. Now these people get to feel how I felt, like powerless as I felt, where if there's a murderer on the loose, you fear for your life every single day. And he feared for his life every single day. Okay, well, that's a horrible like way to think of things. But it's not like Morbius didn't murder people and wasn't like willing to break someone's hand and willing to murder his best friend. You know, like he did plenty of things that were not okay, but they never, like, nobody reacted to them properly. Like the police should have been upset about the murders, and Martine should have been more upset. She should have been more afraid of him. And I understand that people love the self-loathing, like the, brooding, sexy guy.
See, I
And
do blame Angel for that personally.
I mean, it's
David
happened in every.
Boreanaz, you played him too well.
He did. But I mean, they have it in every generation, and that's fine. And Jared Leto is gorgeous, and so he played that role very well. The problem is that everybody else needs to have a better personality. Martine's personality goes from like, I'm not a nurse, I'm a doctor, and I'm I'm going to help you because I think you're a great person, to, oh, you murdered people? Okay, well, I still think you're a great person, so I'm going to help you. Oh, you murdered again? Cool. I'm still going to help you. Like,
Did he murder again? I know he murdered the people on the boat.
she thinks he murdered the nurse, and she was still like cool with it.
Oh, that's right. When he for a while because he didn't know of anybody else. He didn't know Milo Lucian had taken the serum yet.
Well, and
Okay,
he fell asleep. He fell asleep, so he thought he blacked out and murdered her.
yeah.
And so he's going around. That's why he went to jail, because he was pretty sure he had done it, and then he finds out, oh, I didn't do it.
About the movie, just overall, the editing was so weird, so choppy. Shouldn't have, and cuts and transitions between scenes were weird, and it just felt incomplete. It felt as I was saying, hey, I've started editing this movie. There's still work to be done on it, but what do you think of the flow so far? Where should I be putting, what kind of transition would work here? And that
For
that somehow it got, then that's the version that made it to theaters instead of the finished product. It feels like it was a mistake to release this version because it feels incomplete. And
Well,
it's
and
not that
that's
long
kind of
of a movie. They could have added 20 minutes to this movie, focused 5 to 10 more minutes on the beginning of fleshing out the friendship at the very beginning, so we have a foundation not just for them, but also for the
I don't
elderly doctor.
I don't even think we needed like 5 to 10 minutes. I think you needed like 2 minutes. Like, there's so many easier ways to make it, to prove, hey, this is my dad figure, this is my brother figure. Like, you can do it. But the fact of the matter is they meet and they separate instantly. Like, they shouldn't
Yes.
have shown them being separated. And they show them being separated, and then they show Milo's true colors. And so it's like, you should have shown not Milo's true colors. Like, you should have shown Morbius seeing his true colors, or them spending more time together and we see him hiding his true color. Like, it would have taken 2 more minutes in that fresh scene. Like, 2 more minutes, and tell it straight through rather than flashing forward and flashing backwards. Like, just tell it straight through. And you would have had established the connection, established all of the three relationships, because those are the three important relationships in this movie: is the doctor that's a dad figure, especially to Milo, and then the brothership between Milo and Michael. And yeah, like 2 minutes and that would have worked. But yeah, I think this movie is reminiscent of another Jared Leto movie, which is Suicide Squad. Suicide
Oh
Squad was
my God.
edited horribly. Like, that movie was so badly done. And I don't know, it's like the curse of Jared Leto or something because like I think this movie is way better than Suicide Squad, just to be clear. But this one, because it has less characters, at least has a storyline. Um, this one, yeah, the editing was so bad. They could have told this story so cleanly. Like it's not a complicated story, and they could have told it so cleanly. But the annoying thing with badly edited movies, this idea that they have like not enough like sets, like you get this on like teen dramas that everybody is in like this house or this house because they can't afford to go to a different set. This production, he is with Martine. He finds out that the dad guy was his throat was cut, so he goes over there, and then he has to go back to Martine like immediately. So he's just ping-ponging back and forth, and that happens several times in the movie. It's like, okay, well, we're in this lab, well, now we're on the boat, okay, now we're back in the lab. And it gets annoying because it's like it seems very pointless, and there's no progression in the story because the sets aren't progressing with the story. They're ping-ponging back and forth, and it really annoyed me. And that's straight up editing and storytelling. Like if you're a director, you have to walk the line of where your characters are. Like if he needed to be with Martine at that moment, like he should have already been with the friend, and he shouldn't have been with Martine before it happened. You know what I mean?
So the editing was just, and they just didn't take enough time. There was one scene in this movie that I truly honestly enjoyed, and it was the first time we see adult Milo, as he goes by now, and Michael, because Matt and Jared Leto are both very good actors, and they had really good chemistry. I could see in that scene, I was like, oh yeah, look how friends they are. They have a whole history behind them. Look how close they are. I actually laughed at a line that Matt Smith said. I wish I wrote down which one, but there was a line he said that made me laugh
Mm-hmm.
genuinely, and I enjoyed it and I wanted more of that. How much better would this movie have been if they had established the friendship better from when they were young, given us a little bit more? And I just wanted like maybe an up before stuff happens, because here's another thing. I kept as though I was missing chunks of this movie because I kept saying, wait, when did this happen? How long has it been? When did they find this out? After the boat. So we said at the very beginning, I'm not sure how Jared Leto got off that boat. He hit on the boat, according to Taya, because they showed him being able to hang. I thought he somehow got off the boat. Either way, the police did not find him on the boat, whether he was hiding on it or off. But he comes back and he goes to the lab, and we see Milo watching TV about, and there's an incident about that boat, and he's very upset. And I'm thinking he is upset because he thinks that there's a possibility that Michael was on that boat and is now killed or seriously injured. And he even tells, scale 1 to 10, how's your pain today? 11. So I'm like, oh my gosh, he's in such pain. See Milo for a little while. And then he shows up to the lab, Michael. And I'm there like, did I miss it? Did Michael tell him that he was back and that he was in the lab? I thought Michael was staying, underground because of the whole being a vampire thing, doing these experiments about his new powers on the down low. But no, everyone just knows he's in the lab. Anyone can walk in and see him be a vampire. When did Milo find out he's back from the boat? Did he know this whole time he survived? It frustrates me. Am I insane, Taya? Did I miss something? Back out? Did my brain just do what you did with Venom?
No, I mean maybe, but I don't remember either. So we both did it. But like yeah, so he goes back to the lab and starts doing experiments on himself. And
Which is a lot of telling and not showing, by the way, because he's like, I have this, the hearing thing, that the sonar that bats have, and he tells us about it.
okay. Well, before we talk about that, Milo is ridiculously rich, and he has been funding all of Michael's research. And so he would have access to the lab. That makes sense because that's probably his, like he probably owns that lab in the
Yeah,
hospital.
that part makes sense. That's fine.
And so when he comes in asking for Michael, he's like, he was going to get answers, I'm gonna say. Like, he was like, hey, I saw this thing on the news about the boat. What happened? Like something like that. Because he would have been notified had Michael's body been found, you know? And again, that's all just assumption. Like, that's all. It doesn't show it, it doesn't tell it, it doesn't do anything. But yeah, now we can move on to his powers are not visually distinctive, and it's really frustrating. So he has the power to quote unquote fly. And the way that they show that is him kind of disappearing, not really disappearing, into this like swirly fog. Okay. Well, then he finds out the sonar thing that only he can see, and he does the sonar thing, and he like throws a ball and he could hear it ricochet and he can grab it. But that is visually shown as swirly mist things around him and around the things that are making sound. And then when he actually learns to fly is when a train is coming and he starts to see the sound waves that he can move on from a train coming, and that is represented by swirling smoke. And it's like, okay, can other people see the smoke? Because when the cop was like shooting at him, it made it seem like other people could see the smoke. But then other people don't see what he sees when he's doing the echolocation thing. And eventually by the end of the movie, the echolocation is like lights beeping. But before that, it's not lights beeping, it's the whirly furly fog. And so the visual effects that they did for all of his powers all look the same until the end of the movie. That doesn't make sense, and it was very confusing.
You just cleared something up for me, by the way.
What?
In that train scene, I had no idea what the swirly fog thing was.
It's the sound waves that only he can see because he talks to the bats.
I had no idea. I was sitting there like, what is this? I thought John, my husband, thought it was wind. When he was on, I should backtrack. There was swirly sound things on the roof. He's being chased by the cop. Cop is shooting at him. By the way, that scene also terrible. It just ends and then goes to the next scene so choppily. Anyway, but Jonathan, we were like, what is that? He said, maybe it's the wind or something. And I said, I thought he could fly because I remember seeing the trailers. By the way, the trailers for this movie, I wanted to see this movie when I saw the trailer in theaters. I was excited. I was like, oh, we should go see that. It looks like a good scary vampire, superhero, anti-hero, whatever he is, story. Movie was not as good as the trailers, obviously. The editing in the trailer was better than the editing in the movie. So thank you for clearing that up about the train thing. I had no idea what the swirly fog was ever. I kept
That's because sometimes it's representing things that sometimes it's representing things that only he can see, and other times it's representing what other people see as he's like floating around in his powers. Like, it's so confusing.
I'm so glad that you cleared that up because that just was some confusion off. The fog was confusing. So another thing I wanted to talk about while we're talking about effects, Milo looked like a zombie more than a vampire most of the time.
Well, and Jared Leto looked like a werewolf more than a vampire half the time. Like, they
It's
do
the
not
hair,
know
isn't it?
how. Yeah, like, they do not know how to make a CGI beard on that like face. It looked so wolfy. It would look like a wolf whose snout had been cut off, like a wolf and Voldemort had a baby. Like, that's what it looked like. And
I'm
then
sorry, I can't. I'm gonna live with that for the rest of my. Wolf Voldemort had a baby.
and then
Six Lestrange was a werewolf.
yes, Matt Smith's character, he never goes like full on vampire until like one scene at the end, but he's always like half vampire-y because he's been drinking human blood. And so he's more vampire longer than Jared Leto is. But they basically just take his cheeks and like put holes in his cheeks,
Yeah.
and that makes him look more zombie than because of his bone structure. And I'm not saying he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have good bone structure because the man's got cheekbones, but like it doesn't work well on his face, and they could have come up with a different design that made him look more vampire and more even more like bat like anything. Go
It
ahead.
was also the coloring that they did. Yes, with his bone structure, that design definitely wasn't for him, but also the color, very pale man. Now, both he and Jared Leto are white, but Matt Smith is a very pale, as a fellow very pale person.
Yeah.
I think they also did the coloring on him. It looked very grayish when he was a vampire, not the effects necessarily, because he looked like a wolf, but the coloring was better. And when you put them side by side, it's not just the design, it's he looks dead.
And I think that's the difference is I think that Jared Leto, when he went full on vampire scary, like bat wolf Voldemort baby, he looked scary. Like he looked like a monster, and I got that he was a monster. When Matt Smith went full on vampire, I still saw Matt Smith with a bad CGI face on. You know what I mean? Like I'm not
Mhm.
saying the CGI for either of them was great, but it wasn't horrible. Like neither of them had really bad CGI. It was like on par for the movie, but the CGI design was what was off. Like the coloring of it, the like proportions of it was what was off.
It was just very odd to,
Yeah, it wasn't scary. Like at least Jared Leto was scary, you know, like
yeah.
his design. I did say I will like while we're talking about effects, they go back and forth between the vampire look for Jared Leto to human look very seamlessly. Like that was really good animation going back and forth. Like the transitions were really good. So I will give him props for that. As much as I didn't like Matt Smith's, I did like Jared Leto's like when they went back and forth, like how seamless it was.
Yeah, they did a much better job with Jared Leto in that regard. Now, oh, the cops that were in the movie. I was talking about this, how excited I was to do this podcast tonight because Morbius could have been such a movie, and I was telling my husband some of the things I wanted to talk about. And he said, oh yeah, what about those cops? I said, the cops? He's like, yeah, the cops catch up with him every now and then and arrest him. And I said, honestly, until you mentioned them, I had forgotten they were in the movie.
It's a Venom effect.
Your brain just tries to protect you. Now, not because they were bad. They weren't bad actors. I didn't think they had particularly bad anything except just kind of and didn't, aside from at one point imprisoning Jared Leto, what effect did they have on the story?
Well, because I want to say that they are the ones telling the audience what is happening. Like they're the quote unquote narrator of the story. They're like, this guy killed this person. Oh, he's drinking blood now. Oh, he's killing innocent people now. You know, like they're the ones that are kind of telling you what the city is finding out. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they did a super good job of that because they realize about midway through that there's another vampire on the loose. Like that is they're like that is not the doctor. Milo kills 3 people in a parking lot. They get the footage. They're like that is not the doctor. We have 2 murderers on the loose. And then Milo kills a bunch of cops, a bunch of civilians in the subway and Morbius just walks away,
Yeah,
literally.
what
He
was up
just
with
walks
that?
away and then he jumps into the slipstream of the sound that he hears of that whole mess and flies away. And you're just like, and then they fight on some rooftops and stuff, but it was just kind of like the motive of the bad guy wasn't clear enough as to why he killed like his father figure. And then he's like, I'm going to kidnap this girl and have her call out for Morbius because I know that Morbius can hear her because we have supersonic hearing now. Why? Like, what was his, like, he is like, I am going to make Michael understand. Like, I'm going to make him love who he is by killing his girlfriend and his father figure. Like, what? What? Like, you did not go insane because of the serum. We know the serum doesn't make you insane. Like, because Morbius isn't insane, you know. So it's like you are this person, and I get that you're a bully, but you were too weak to actually bully anybody, so you bully people with money. I get that, but why are you going after Morbius when Morbius is not going after you? Like he has said he wants to stop you. He has said you're doing the wrong thing. But other than that, he is not doing anything. He literally ran away from you. So why are you trying to kill him? Why are you trying to trap him? Why are you making him ping pong? Like, because like it doesn't make sense, because if he wanted to, like, okay, so this is how it goes. Morbius is with Martine. He leaves Martine, and while he is gone from her, he gets a phone call that his dad figure is dying. So he goes to the dad figure. At that point, Matt Smith's character kidnaps the girl so that and it's like, why did he need to kill the dad character in order to get Michael away from the girl? He was already away from the girl. Like, he could have just kidnapped her and that would have been it. Like, if you wanted a death scene to really impact like the story and be like, okay, we see like Milo murdered one person and he felt bad about it, but then he couldn't control it, so he killed more people. And then, you know, and he's going on this downward spiral that culminates in him actually killing his father figure who he really, really loves. Like, that would have been a more believable slope. But instead, he's just evil, and we just have to accept that he's evil and that nobody noticed it because he was dying. You know what I mean? Like, it just didn't work because Milo's descent wasn't a descent. It was an unveiling. And you can't unveil in the middle of the story. And he unveils in the middle of the story and then kills a bunch of people, and then we see him die. The story really, really flat and doesn't flow well because you're not seeing Michael ascend and Milo descend. You're just watching both of them do stuff.
They kind of tried with the kid showing that he's beating that kid up, but I don't translate that from, okay, he's gonna grow up and be psychotic or a murderer. He's an emotional kid and he's going through a lot, and apparently has been separated from his friend who's so close they're more like brothers. Kids are gonna be mean sometimes. They don't know how to fully control their emotions because they're not adults yet, and hopefully adults know how to control their emotions. So they kind of tried, but they failed. And I think if you and I were brought into script doc, we shoot some stuff, we would have had a scene earlier with Milo and Michael. Oh my gosh, too many M's. Jared Leto and Matt Smith together, where Matt Smith, his character, lets the mask and we see what's underneath for a moment before he puts the mask back up.
So he basically tells Michael when they're in prison, he's like, we can make that, like, he's like, I killed people. And he's like, oh, those Marines or mercenaries that were on the boat, we can make that go away. We can make it go away. It's fine. It's fine. Like, it's not a big deal that you killed those people. And so you could show like maybe Jared Leto, like, ding, like that's a problem. Murder is murder, like, you know, something like that. And then show another time where, because they tell you, he tells Jared Leto, you didn't kill the nurse. You're not a bad person. You didn't kill the nurse. I killed the nurse and it was an accident. Please forgive me, you know, kind of a thing. We should have seen Milo pretending for longer. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
he should have been pretending all the way up until the end when he kills the dad. And then there's nothing he can do because he can't excuse that. He can't hide it from Morbius. And that's when the mask comes off. The fact that as soon as he turns, the mask comes off. And then the rest of it it feels like filler. It doesn't feel like it's part of the story because you know who the bad guy is. You know you've got to kill him. And then there's like 10 scenes where not a lot happens before we get to the
Yes.
climax. And that's why it drags on. Even though it's a short movie, that's why it drags,
It
is because there's no
did.
progression.
I couldn't wait for it to end. I was so annoyed every time I saw there was more to watch, like with those after credit scenes. It really bothers me. We mentioned earlier that he finds out about the slab from some overhears some people paying with counterfeit bills, and they bribe someone with counterfeit bills, by the way, but it worked. So he's in the diner, or this restaurant diner, with Martine, the female doctor, and he asks her, "Could you get some stuff from the lab for me?" She's like, "Yeah, sure, but what are you going to use it for?" And I can't remember what he says, but then he just leaves. And so I was sitting there, I said, did he ever tell her what he needed from the lab? Or did he say, "I'll text you or call you with what I need and where to bring it"? Because one second they're at the diner, he says, "Can you get some stuff from the lab for me?" She says, "Yeah, sure." People, he follows them to their lab,
Well,
breaks the bones and the fingers of to be in charge, kicks them out of their lab, and then she's packing stuff up and meets them there. And so I'm assuming he texted or called her with what he needed and where to bring it. Really annoying. Just one really annoying example of how often we have to kind of assume things.
right, because what she says is, "You look like you're up to something," and he's like, "Yeah, can you do it or whatever?" And she's like, "Yeah, but where are you gonna go?" And he's like you said, I'm up to something." And that's the conversation. And then we see the detectives go into her apartment, and they're like, "The cat is gone." Like, she has, like, a kitty litter basket tray, I don't know, whatever, kitty litter
Box.
thing, box, litter box, that's the one. They see the litter box, and he calls the cat, and he's like, "The cat is gone," which means that she left. So they I guess they figure out that she's in on it. And then we see her with him in the lab and her cat. I think that's when it happens. I don't even know.
Well, she's getting, at one point she's getting followed by one of the detectives, and she slips out the back. Oh, this is before the restaurant. She slips out the back door, gets on a bus, and Morbius is on that bus. Did they plan that
Yeah.
before? Was it a happy coincidence
No,
following her
he
with the
he was
sonar
following.
thing? Okay.
Morbius was following her.
So I have this thing where I want filmmakers to stop audiences are dumb and stop underestimating their audiences. But at the same time, you have to give them enough relevant information so that the story makes sense and so they don't get pulled out of whatever disbelief they have to be in to be watching your movie, because you have to have some form of disbelief, like, yeah, this many coincidences can happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's fantasy where there's vampires and whatnot. You don't want to pull them out by making them so like I was many times in this movie. I was pulled out. I would literally pause and say, "What just happened? Did I miss something? Did they do this or that or what?" Don't underestimate your audience. Assume that most people can follow a good, coherent story. Make that story coherent. Don't also, on the other end, assume that they're so smart that they will just know what you intended to happen in the movie. Like, oh yeah, they had that conversation and now she's gone. So you just are left to assume or guess what happened. You can figure it out. It's one or two lines that you have to put in there. He could have just said, "Yeah, I'm up to something. Pack your bags. I'll text you where to meet up," or something. It would solve so much.
Frustrating because I'm a writer, and I have all different types of writing tips and courses that I've taken, and so many, mentors telling me what to do and stuff. And, like, it bothers me as a writer that I'm being told all of these things of storytelling, and then you watch shows or movies that are huge, big budgets, and the writing doesn't add up, right? And I can tell that this was the editor's fault, because a lot of the conversations don't make sense, and the way that the scenes flow together doesn't make sense. And so it's like, I know that you cut a bunch of stuff, and if you're going to cut stuff, you have resources to, like, make a B track or something where they're talking over something that is not them moving, like, not their lips moving. And, like, you have the ability to make the final product as good as it can be, but instead you just took probably a pretty good script, because I do think that this script was fine, but because it was edited so badly, it was, like, hacked up. Like I feel it. I don't know that for sure, but like I feel like this was a cool story that got hacked up in editing and they never fixed the problems. It's the same as like when you do a adaptation from a book to a movie and you have to cut stuff out and change some stuff, and it's like it's okay if you change stuff, but you have to close the loop. You can't just leave it hanging out there so that it doesn't make sense in the adaptation. You have to have read, the original source material. In this one, I feel like I needed to read the script in order to know what was going on, because it feels very hacked up to me. And I really want to like this movie. I really like Jared Leto as an actor. I've never been a huge fan of Matt Smith because I never watched Doctor Who or Game of Thrones, but I can recognize his talent, and I think this is a cool story. It's superhero, it's anti-hero, it's vampires, and I do think it could be really cool, but I can tell that somebody wrote this really cool story and it was hacked up. And I feel so bad because this movie bombed, and it bombed because it feels like nothing is happening for a very long time in this movie.
Yes.
And but you can tell like the writers were good. Like the dialogue that's in it is really funny. And like you said, that first scene with them together, and he's like, and Jared Leto is like, if you say something like that again, I am going to turn around and slowly hobble away. Like it was funny. Like there's really good lines in this movie, and I think that they are delivered just fine, but the story leaves so much time where nothing is feels like nothing is happening. Like, yeah, they're doing this thing and they're doing this thing and they're doing this thing, but it doesn't actually move the story forward. We're not seeing a descent of a bad guy. We're not seeing the ascent of a hero. We're literally just watching people go from activity to activity to activity to activity. Like that's it. When we talk about what we would change, I would have changed the beginning and made it so like their relationship was established better. I would have made the bad guys on the ship way worse than they were, and established that he was like, even in his like vampire-y, like stoned out brain, he was protecting Martine, so that you have a sense that even when he's like super evil, he still has a sense of good. And I would have, of course, made the bad guy's descent different. And then I would have ended the movie, because this doesn't end the movie at all. We don't know if Martine is like him or if she's some hybrid. We don't know if he can just make vampires by dropping one little drop of blood in their stream. And we don't know if like he doesn't take the injection. And so I think what should have happened is that he made two. One of them should have got destroyed, and he should have used the second one on the bad guy, so that we're not just like, so you just decided not to do it. You know, it
Well,
doesn't. We don't
he
see him
also,
with Martine after that.
yeah, no, we don't. He also drank from Martine. Like he does licks her and whatever of blood after they kiss, and he does this scream because she starts to die. She stops moving, stops breathing.
Well,
So
he
to
can
all
hear her
appearances, she's
heartbeat.
dead. Weird scream, and then and I was thinking, does he have to turn her? Is this like some weird vampire instinct?
No,
He just
I'm gonna
drink from
explain
her?
it. So, when you are on the red, it makes you stronger. They
Well,
do
I
say that.
understand that. He drank
So
from her to be
so
strong enough
he
to go against Milo.
Yes. So she says, make it count. And so he can hear her heartbeat and he hears her heart stop. That's when he screams because she's dead. He knows that she's dead. Her heart has stopped beating. So he screams. He does what she asks, drinks her blood so he's strong enough to defeats Milo, and then just leaves her up on the roof.
Yeah. Okay, we're running over an hour now, but seriously, the battle between them was so lame. I was bored, Taya.
I think critics would agree with you. It was boring.
So boring, very anticlimactic. Why are the bats not attacking Milo? Or the bats are attacking Milo. Why are they not attacking Michael? and not accept Milo? Is it because they have a sense of what is right and what is wrong, and instead of ethics, and they're like, oh,
I
he's a
think
murderer. We don't like. Why? Why can
so.
Jared
My
Leto control them?
my interpretation, again, because it doesn't explicitly say it. So Jared Leto at the beginning, right? That stupid scene that doesn't make much sense. He gets bats and he has an aquarium of bats in his lab, which they could have just shown the aquarium of bats. They didn't need to see how he filled it, but he has an aquarium of bats. While he is doing his experiments, he goes in with the bats and he's like, they've accepted me as a brother. And so that's why he can control the bats. Well, he doesn't control them while they're in there, but he tells the audience, like his voice over, they've accepted me. I can understand them and they can understand me. It's not like a language, but it's like this weird brotherhood that we have. And they like that's when he figures out the echolocation is because they kind of explained it to him in their bat languagey stuff. And so at the end, when he calls on the bats, he's technically calling on the bats that were in the lab, not but every bat in New York City comes anyway because he doesn't have that
Yeah,
many in his lab.
yeah. There are a lot of bats in New York City. I just, I was making a joke with my husband that Jared Leto's character should be man in this case. It'd make more sense. But also, poor Jared Leto. So bad for him because he really is a good actor. He tried to be in the DC universe with Suicide Squad, and unfortunately, that didn't lot out apparently of the from the film of
Mm-hmm.
him. He had a lot more scenes and a lot more to do in it. I thought his Joker, for the interpretation they were going for, was okay. I would have liked to see, just because I wanted to see what he could do with it, and maybe it would have helped the movie. I don't
Me
know.
too. Okay, I liked his Joker because, and this is the thing, Joker is an iconic character and it has been played by iconic people. So, in order to do that character fresh, you have to have a completely different take on it. And he
And he
did,
did.
and it did not bother me at all. Like, it was weird punk. And I mean, like, it's a stupid movie, but like, but it worked. He was like one of my favorite parts of that movie. And I don't like so many people hate it. And the longer the movie has been out, more people are like blaming Jared Leto for like the flop of the movie. And I'm like, no, that
No,
movie was all
badly
production
edited.
fault. All of production ruined that movie. You had amazing actors, you had amazing performances. Margot Robbie, Will Smith all did amazing, but that movie sucked so bad. The story was horrible. It was edited horrible. It like flowed horribly. And I know. And it wasn't Jared Leto's fault. Like Jared Leto was
Absolutely.
like he was
He's an
weird and he was
he's not a producer. He wasn't saying cut this, cut that. He showed up, he acted his heart out. He put a lot into that Joker character. As I said, it was very on it. I wanted to see more because I wanted to build on it. I felt as though I didn't really get to know him as well as I could have. The music squad also could have been better. I video where they talked about why the music in Suicide Squad didn't work versus another movie where I think it was versus Shrek or something. Very weird
yeah.
comparison. But the music better because it was just a little too on the nose,
Yeah.
emotionally impactful in any way. There were so many other things wrong with Suicide Squad, and Jared Leto was not any of them, except
No.
enough of him, if anything.
Yeah.
So he tried to
And
be in the
I
DC universe. It backfires on him. Now he tries to be in the Marvel universe. And again, amazing performance. He put a lot into it. I liked his performance. I thought he was a good actor. It was fantastic chemistry. And it bombed. This poor guy. I just,
and it's
and
not
it,
his fault.
no, being blamed.
Yeah. And I feel bad and the last thing I wanted to talk about was the kiss, which was so incredibly anticlimactic. like um so these characters, they Matt Smith comment on it. I want to say like kind of like he teases him about this girl, this doctor or whatever. And she obviously has no problem with him being a mass murderer. And so like, they're going to hook up. But the kissing scene is she cuts her finger. He has a moment of like really hungering for the blood, whatever, like vampire, right? And then he goes up on the roof, like they talk about it and he's fine. And then he goes up on the roof and she comes up and she's got a band-aid on her finger. And then like they have a really short conversation of like, I wouldn't have gone like full vamp on you. Or full Dracula, that's what he says. I wouldn't have gone all Dracula on you. And she's like, I think Dracula is actually a really romantic character.
Oh,
And
no
then they
wonder.
look at each other. Yeah, she's like, they look at each other. He's like, come here, come closer, close your eyes. And he kisses her. And like, it's
I like
so,
how he gives her instructions on how
yeah, like I thought he was gonna like do something or say something and then she was gonna kiss him because that's very much her
Yes,
personality. Like, but no, he just like never mind, whatever I was gonna do, I'm just gonna forget it and I'll just kiss you.
I I
That's what it felt
legitimately
like.
thought he was gonna pull something out, a flower or a necklace or a bracelet or
Well,
something with
because he
meaning or
does
show her.
origami. He does origami throughout the entire movie. I really thought he was
Yes,
gonna give her an origami something. But no,
yes.
he's like pulls her close and it's like if you're gonna pull her close, like why did you tell her to close her eyes? I don't know.
He was giving her instructions on how
It was
to
just
kiss. I
not
don't know. That was just very okay. It's kind of like a director giving actors instructions on how they to stand and what direction to face when they do the kiss scene. And
yeah.
he took it from the director.
But that's another time where I feel like they had to have cut something out or something because it just and I'm like I don't know. I like kiss scenes in movies. I know it makes a lot of people uncomfortable, but to me it's um like a comfort thing. Like, oh, I love it when they get the final kiss. Like that's why I don't like Mulan. We've talked about it before because the characters don't kiss. And like
And
I
I
don't know.
don't
It's a
care.
thing with me. I like I like it when the character like when they get to kiss and you get to see it. And this one I was just like if this was not Jared Leto, who's gorgeous, and I just am like, oh, I want him to get the girl because I'm rooting for him. I would be like, what girl? What are you doing? Like, other than the fact that he is hot, like this scenario is in no way romantic at all. Like
No. Well,
it
maybe
just
she just
didn't.
has a vampire fetish. Think about it. She thinks Dracula's a romantic figure.
But then why didn't she kiss him?
I don't know. Maybe
They
she
built it up
thought that was going. I don't
like
know.
they built it up so he's the brooding vampire. Oh, I hate myself. And she's like the oh, but you're so wonderful. I love you. Like they built it up like that, but then he's the one that's like he's the one that's not even just initiating, but straight up doing it, kissing her. I don't it just didn't work. It just didn't flow for me. And it makes me sad because I really like Jared Leto and I want him to get the girl in like the best way possible. And then the next time they kiss is when she bites his lip and like she's dying, like that's not romantic. I don't know. The kissing scenes in this movie were not fun to watch. They didn't help the story because they were just I don't know. They were very disappointing. That's what it is. They were just disappointing.
I think you just summed up the whole movie. Disappointing. That's the word for this movie. Being also frustrating because I can see the bones of a good movie in there. Like I said, if I came in and okay, it's not fully finished yet. Like this is not the fully finished product. This is just bare bones. We're kind of just putting scenes in an order and seeing if it works. And I would have been like, this is a really good start. Now all you need to do is like shift this around, have a bit more here, do a bit more there. You know what I mean? Then
Whoever
boom, you have a movie.
whoever did the Obi-Wan movie should do this. Have you heard about that?
Obi-Wan movie.
Yeah, so they took the show Obi-Wan Kenobi and they cut it down to a 2-hour movie. And it's like brilliant. But it's like they cut it to the point of like they take out all the filler and they make it into a movie. And I'm like, those people need to take this movie and take all of the extra scenes that they cut out and put them back in place to make it a movie.
Oh my gosh. It makes me sad to know that so much entertainment is being put out today by really big companies, really big production companies, that where the writing, either the writing isn't good or the editing isn't good. It's not as good as it can be. And then knowing that there are people who have the talent either to come up with original stories. I mean, it's all over YouTube, and I'm sure many other podcasts that talk about movies and shows and games. People want original content and they're really sick of seeing reboots of things, and those reboots being bad or sequels being bad. They're tired of, and there's so many people out there with original ideas. There's so many people out there who know how to write good stories and know how to edit, know how to direct, know how to do everything. But for some reason, they're not getting the opportunity to do so, at least not with the big companies. I'm really hoping it's going to start a shift of people looking more to independent filmmakers, looking more to smaller creators, which again, YouTube exists to people who do lots of things on YouTube, but I'm really hoping that people will start paying attention to more to and giving more fun, giving more praise and attention, trying to bring it to the main of people give who write good stories, who are doing good with storytelling. And maybe, just maybe, if we do that enough, the big companies will then turn their attention to finding talent like that and funding their, not doing what they did to Peter Jackson in The Hobbit, which is overstepping their bounds and ruining what might have been okay if Peter Jackson could have made one movie
Yeah.
truer to the book. Because look at what he did with Lord of the Rings. I mean, that's a whole different topic about Peter Jackson and The Hobbit and how the production company really screwed him over. Right now, I'm just saying it's really sad to see that there's so much good talent. You would think that they would go up to the top, but and it's just a little frustrating to see that happen. And I feel very sorry for Jared Leto. If he ever happens to listen to this, we were rooting for you. We still are. Continue making movies. I'm sure he is, but it's not your fault. That's what I
He
want to
produced
say. I don't know who
it.
you are as a person, but as an actor, I think you're a good one to continue to see you in projects.
Well, and he directs like a lot of his music videos that are like the longer videos. So he does like he has production chops and stuff like that. And I've seen his videos, not all of them because some of them are inappropriate, but like
Wait.
but he is the lead singer of 30 Seconds to Mars.
He's the lead singer of
Yes.
Have I ever told you this weird thing where I know band names, but literally no one in the band except for Maroon 5 because of Adam Levine?
Well, Jared Leto is the lead singer of 30
I
Seconds to
had
Mars.
no idea.
That is hilarious. No, you
I
should watch
do.
his movie, like his videos. They're so good.
I'm going to do that now.
Um,
That's our
watch,
recommendation for the end of this podcast. Jared
yes.
Leto's music videos.
The one I recommend, oh, where they're in China. What is it called? On His Face is the Map of the World. Google that and it'll show you. I don't know what the actual name of the song is, but On His Face is a Map of the World. What is the name? Tell me what the name of that song is in the comments on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, because it's gonna bug me and I'm gonna Google it right now. But Jared Leto, and he does Kings and Queens is one of them that he does that is really good. Um, but yeah, he has acting chops, he has directing chops. He is very weird, and some of I won't recommend Hurricane. That is not family appropriate, but there are other ones that are good. A Beautiful Lie is one that I think he did. And yeah, so those are our recommendations.
Basically, everything matters when making a movie. Everything has to come together, and it's so amazing that we've had for such a long time a lot of good movies, and then so weird that now we're having so. But
Yeah.
I guess the theme is even if you're a big production studio, you still have to put effort into making it.
Yes, definitely. All right. Well, we're gonna we're gonna go now that we're 25 minutes over. Um, check us out on Facebook, Instagram. You can support us over on patreon.com/TayaJoyFlake. Either one of the tiers that have our tree logo on them. One is the podcast, one is the YouTube channel. You'll get exclusive content. So check us out there. Make sure you're liking, sharing, and showing all of your friends our podcast. And I think that's everything. So I'm Taya.
I'm Laura. Bye.
Bye.